Guys, I got to rant about something. But before I do, props to the Chicago Cubs for holy shit, 108 long years without winning a World Series. They got the job done last night in the wee hours of the morning past 1 o'clock in a game that most of you probably fell asleep before it ended. Amazing 7-game series. I'm not a fan of the Cubs. I'm not a fan of the Indians. I'm a fan of the game of baseball, and unfortunately this year the Philadelphia Phillies, but they ain't the Braves. Anyway, I was just captivated in all I can, because I never felt this level of appreciation other than my Phillies winning the World Series in '08. I've never felt this amount of being captivated. Like baseball was back. Baseball was hot again. Baseball's been struggling with irrelevancy with the juggernaut of the NFL moving up and basketball. And I kept tweeting out something last night that stuck up my crawl about this series. And specifically Game 7 here. And that is, this game should have been at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The Chicago Cubs were consistently the single best team in baseball throughout the entire season. They won, obviously, enough games to get into the World Series itself. But they lost it because of the dumbest rule in all of sports, not just baseball, in all of sports, which was the winner of the All-Star game decides home field advantage in the World Series. Yes, this is dumber than there being 14 teams in the Big Ten Conference. It's dumber than that. It's dumber than the Dallas Cowboys playing in a conference called the NFC East, because when you think of Eastern United States, you obviously think of Dallas, Texas. It's dumber than that. It's dumber than there only being a DH in the American League. It's dumber than all that. An exhibition game decided whether or not the World Series Game 7 last night would have been at Wrigley Field. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, you never know. The series may have ended up being different. I mean, the series could have been swept by the Cubs if it started off in Chicago as opposed to Cleveland like it did this year for 2 games. Any number of things could change. But the bottom line is, if this went to a 7-game series, the Cubs should have deserved to have the right to have Game 7 played in their house. And as much of a lifelong fan of baseball I am, and just knowing and appreciating the game, Major League Baseball and the stupidest of stupid rules in sports tarnished. Now, granted, Chicago is still flipping their shit over them winning. I think they don't really give a shit whether or not it was in their house or not. But it deserved to be in their house, and that's the bottom line. This rule has to change, and I'm listening to ESPN and Sports Talk Radio and everyone. No one's bringing this up. No one is bringing up just how dumb this rule is and how this should have been at Wrigley Field last night. A place where it didn't rain, where there wouldn't have been a rain delay, by the way. Anyway, as a fan of baseball, this would have been that much more of a special climactic moment to see the Cubs finally win after 108 seasons of not getting the job done completely. To win it at Wrigley, a place where they haven't had a World Series since the 1940s. Jesus! This rule has to go. This rule has to go. An exhibition game deciding home field advantage in the World Series. This rule has to go. No one cares. And I know the rule came about because there was a tie in the All-Star game. Did anyone really give a flying fuck at all that there was a tie in the Major League Baseball All-Star game? The commissioner did, and Selig decided to make the dumbest rule in the absolute history of, find me a rule that is dumber. This rule affects the championship round. And people might say, well, the Super Bowl is never held at the home team stadium. Well, it technically can, but, it's not allotted to be the home team stadium. But that's, you can't just book the Super Bowl venue 2 weeks out. That's a whole different story. This rule has to change. And the thing is like a rule like this isn't going to change unless you strike when the iron's hot. And the iron is hot right now. And the cause is that this Game 7 should have been at Wrigley Field last night. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anyone who loves and appreciates the game of baseball should be furious that they had a special moment that could have been that much more special because of a dumb rule saying an exhibition game decides home field advantage. That's bullshit. It has to change. Has to change, and I hear no one talking about it other than me on Twitter last night and now in this video. That is all.